It's time.
Time to meet the women who make a living around fast cars.
Hello, ladies.
This is Women Take the Wheel.
Sit down, strap in, and turn on all you got.
Nikki Clark is taking you behind the scenes.
You're ready to win. Let me tell you, these cars, they get up and go pretty good.
Introducing you to women drivers, crew members, and fans of the racing world. Plus, Nikki is bringing you the latest racing news in Indiana and beyond.
We're going to bring it to you from the tower as they get ready to pull into the beam.
From the All Indiana Podcast Network.
All right, strap yourselves in.
Woo! Getting off the track and in your ears. This is Women Take the Wheel.
Come on, baby.
With your host,
Here we go.
Nikki Clark.
Hi, I'm Nikki Clark, your host for Women Take the Wheel, here on the All Indiana Podcast Network. And on this episode, I have on sprint car driver and team owner McKenna Haase. And driver and owner are just two of the roles she takes on. She also created and runs a foundation to help introduce kids all over the country to motorsports and get families the resources they need to compete. Her journey to pursue her dream of racing is an amazing and inspirational story that I cannot wait for you to hear. Stay tuned.
Your day moves fast. Your news should too. That's why there's a new and improved Wish TV app bringing you more local news, breaking alerts, live streaming, weather forecasts, radar, and Indiana sports all in one place. Customize your news feed to see the stories that matter most to you and get the information you need when you need it. Download the new and improved Wish TV app today on iOS or Android and take News 8 with you everywhere.
And welcome to Women Take the Wheel. I'm very excited because I actually have somebody in studio this week, which doesn't happen often. But I have McKenna Haase. How are you doing today?
Good. How are you doing?
I am doing wonderful. Sorry, I was just checking my notes.
It's okay.
So I've heard so many wonderful things about you, so many great things, and you're so young. I'm so impressed by you.
Thank you.
So rather than me try to read notes and blot off, so you drive a 410 sprint car, correct?
Correct.
But when did you start? When did you go oh, I want to drive? When did you know that you wanted to do this?
I started racing when I was 13 in outlaw karts. I had a cousin that raced micro sprints when I was younger. And then I also met Casey Kane by chance in a shopping mall when I was younger. So those were kind of my two interests, racing, and started following the sport. And it took me a while to figure out that kids can race. That wasn't really something that I knew growing up was a thing. And so fell in love with youth motorsports in general, and then just basically kept pursuing it until I was able to get behind the wheel of somebody else's car and did pretty good, and then started kind of just working my way up from there.
Oh my goodness. Did Casey give you advice to do racing?
He thought, so when I met him, I didn't know who he was. And so he thought I followed racing. And so when we were talking, he asked where I was from, and when I said Des Moines, Iowa, he asked if I go to Knoxville Raceway, and I didn't know what that was. My parents did, but I didn't. And so he was the reason why I started going to Knoxville and why I started, I went to Iowa Speedway to watch him and started following NASCAR and all that. And so that was kind of that, and I didn't really ever see him again until we were racing each other, basically. So now we race each other most weekends, it seems like. So.
Oh my gosh, that's cool. So now the person who got you into it, you now compete against him.
Yes. And it almost seems like we always end up starting side by side, or we kind of always end up in a lot of the same races together. So yeah, that is pretty cool. That, when he stepped down from NASCAR, now he races sprint cars every week. So
fun. And then I love that Tony Stewart still does it too. Once in a while, I'm that is so awesome.
Yeah, it is cool. We have a lot of NASCAR drivers come and race sprint cars during the week. And I was just listening to an interview with Kyle Larson, and he was on Fox saying how, a lot of times when he goes and races sprint cars, people think he's stepping down to race sprint cars. And he's I'm actually stepping over because, the competition is so good, and these are professional race car drivers racing. And so that's something we take pride in as a sport. I get asked that a lot, well, where are you trying to make it? And I don't think people realize that right now, especially probably more than ever, 410 wing sprint car racing, that is the goal for a lot of people, and people do make a good living doing it.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And even I've started into it because I'll admit I was a straight track girl. But one of my buddies took me out to, like, I think it was Circus City or something like that. And
Okay.
I started to watch the dirt, and that's not easy.
No.
And I watch you guys drift, and I'm like, how hard was that to learn?
For me, it was pretty hard just because I felt like I didn't grow up. Like, nowadays, kids just grow up racing so much when they're younger that they kind of get a feel for that experience. Like, they know what it feels like to run right on the cushion up by the wall, or just even little things like passing and stuff that they learn at such a young age. Like, even though I started when I was 13, it wasn't like, I mean, we maybe raced like 10, 15 times a year. Like, it wasn't this super serious, like, high level, like what a lot of kids are doing now. And so when I started racing sprint cars, I was at Knoxville every week, which is like, probably one of the toughest tracks in the world. And so I had to like really, really grind to learn a lot of what I felt like I hadn't really learned before, and just leaned on a lot of the 410 drivers at that time to like teach me, or watched a lot of videos. And, for me, it was, I think at that point, like a little bit natural, but also a lot mental, just because I kind of had to like conceptually just try to, cram all that in a short period of time. And so thankfully, I ended up getting my first win at Knoxville the second season that I was there, and then went on to win, a few times in like the 305 and 360 class. And so now I'm racing 410, and I would love to win in 410 specifically at Knoxville. But it is just super, super challenging, just because I really think like 410 wing sprint car racing right now is probably maybe as competitive as it's ever been. Like, it's just so many cars, like so high of competition, like really big payouts and money and just all that. And so it's tough to compete, like not only as a driver, but also just like as a team owner. That's another challenge that like I have, is like, how can I compete as a mechanic, as a team owner, and as a driver? I think that's a big difference. If you just show up and like you're focused on being a driver, that's one thing. But when you have to kind of focus on those other elements too, and figure out like, how can I compete on these other areas, then I think that that's really difficult. And I also think it's the part that's like the most unseen in the sport. Like, I don't think people realize like what goes into owning the team, or what goes into paying for the cars, or what goes into working on them. Like, and the differences throughout the teams in the pits. Like, it's not like everybody's just bringing the same thing to the table.
I was going to say, that's what's impressing me so much, is the fact that you're a young girl and you're competing with like people all these different ages. And like you said, you own your own team. Mm-hmm. You work on your own. And I mean, I suppose some of the other ones, all they have to do is drive.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, there are definitely some drivers that that's like their job is to drive. And with right now, like most of the professionals are racing like over 100 races a year. And so, I mean, if you're a driver, that's like, you can probably only focus on that if you're racing that many times a year. And so I think like that would just be amazing, in my opinion, to get to that point where it's like you do have people to serve different roles, because one person can only do so many things, and even two people can only do so many things, and so on and so forth. But like when you look at the biggest teams in our industry, like they typically have like a crew chief, a car chief, a tire specialist, a driver, a team owner, like all those different people, maybe here and there, like a PR person, or family selling t-shirts, like stuff like that. And so I think that's another challenge, is like when I moved out here, like I don't have any family here, and I have a lot of people that treat me like family. And a lot of people that have just helped me out in so many ways, but like I don't, and I'm also single. So it's not like, even when it comes to like the t-shirts and things like that, like we've met some really great people that have helped make that possible for us to do that. But it's just all those little elements where you're constantly just like, okay, how do we fill this void, or how do we fill this void? And then like, where does everybody fit? And it's extremely challenging. It's a lot of work. And I wish that our sport had just more coverage in general, so people could really see like what goes into it, just because even just based on reading social media, like you can just tell that unfortunately people just don't really get to see the whole picture. And I really wish they could, because I think they would just have a newfound respect for like not only myself, but just other teams who like are like mine, that do have to go the extra mile and like work so hard just to be there.
Yeah, that's the thing, is so you get these computer warriors, as they call them, like, oh, why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? Well,
Yep.
buddy, why don't you come on down and give it a try?
It's just so disappointing to me about our sport, because I'm like, people could really like learn a lot if they were asking better questions or listening more. But I feel like our society is just so quick to just want to offer like an opinion or a comment instead of just like wanting to learn about something that they don't know about. And I think it would make our sport like much more fruitful if people were more invested in that part of it. Like, let's like learn something, let's admire people, let's respect people for what they do and what they've done, and not just like want to exert, you know, like your own opinion or thought. And I just think people want to feel valued, you know, like I think that's what it comes down to in life. And like, I think people want to feel validated and like they have a place and like they have worth. And maybe taking to social media isn't probably the best way to do it, but for a lot of people, that's like the low hanging fruit. And so I always say it's kind of like when I speak to elementary schools, every time I'm a guest speaker, the teacher always says like, McKenna's here to share kids. And when she gets done, like you can ask her a question, but we're not going to be sharing stories.
Oh.
And I'm like, it kind of reminds me, I wish like adults on social media were sometimes told the same thing.
Oh, I like this concept. I like
right,
this.
It's like, okay, somebody's going to post about the race car, about something. Like, let's not, you know, like, let's like ask a question or share a positive comment, but let's not, you know, overstep our bounds. And so unfortunately it's part of life, but I wish it wasn't that way.
Now, a lot of people are discovering a lot more too with that reality docuseries Dirt. Do you think that's helping or hurting the people who are on social media? Do you think it's helping teach?
I hope so. I haven't honestly gotten to see a ton of it, and you know, it makes it harder to speak on it. I intend to watch more of it, but you know, I do hope that it helps, especially if it kind of shows like more of that behind the scenes and just kind of the details behind it. I know that there was a different one. It was like Sheldon Haunshield's video that they did, and I don't remember what it was called, but I thought that was really good at showing like the behind the scenes of sprint car racing, like just the brutality of it and that kind of thing. I think there's always like a better way to tell story, or not better in comparison to those, but I mean just in general from where we're at, like, you know, how can we continue like telling our stories and like sharing what goes into our sport? But I think it's almost like a catch-22. I was thinking about this today because I'm like, in order to tell a story or in order to show the behind the scenes, like that takes money and it also takes like interest, right? Like somebody has to be paying attention to that, which might be worth it, right? Like maybe some people see the diamond in the rough there. But I think when you look at the people who consistently get that, it's the people who already have that, right? Like other forms of racing have TV deals, therefore they have to have, you know, coverage or stories or things like that. But that also comes with like a pretty big commercial element with it, you know? And so it is, personally, I do get jealous of other forms of motorsports that do kind of have like those TV deals and have like structured promotion like that. But I also understand that, you know, there can be negative like commercial effects that come with that as well. And so I think for me, it just depends on, you know, like, especially when I look at my own life or my own story, it's like, I don't know. I think like my faith is important to me, and I just always see it as like, well, God knows the truth, you know, and like I know the truth about my life and what I wake up and do every day and what other drivers like me wake up and do every day. And like whether somebody ever knows it or not, it doesn't really matter as long as, you know, I'm doing what I love and what gives me purpose in life and helps me give other people purpose in life. And I feel like that really helps build your character when nobody's watching, like when nobody's going to give you a pat on the back, when nobody's going to say like, great job. Or even if, like, I even always think at the end of the year, I get so jealous of all the banquets that everybody gets to go to, like, because we run like what's called like a true outlaw schedule, so we're not with a series anymore, so I just pick and choose what races I go to. But if you're not running for points, like, you don't get to go to a banquet, you're not going to be at any, like, I'm blown away at how many motorsports related like gatherings there are like that. Like there's a Hall of Fame for literally everything. There's every kind of motorsports club of America, this or that. And I see all these people I know just going to all these fancy events, getting all these plaques, which is awesome. But when you look at motorsports, like, I think what really matters is just like all the people that make up the industry that are never going to go to an event like that. They're never going to get a plaque, but they're in their garages week in and week out working so hard on their cars, on their kids' cars, whatever it looks like. And that's what like really makes up the bulk of the sport. And even from an economical standpoint, like how much of the funding in our sport comes from that. Like if you were to be able to calculate that, like it would be absolutely astronomical. Like literally every t-shirt sold in this business is almost always going to one of those people, right? Like one of those people that are not getting the credit or are not getting like the accolades, but they're the ones that are like genuinely investing in what we do. And I think that's like what, to me, that's why it's so important to give back. But I don't know if like the industry maybe always sees it that way as well, just because I think it's so hard to look at things from that perspective.
And now let's go back a little bit too, because you're a team owner, mechanic, all this. So you started when you're 13. How did you balance school with your racing? Because that sounds challenging, being the team owner, all this. And on top of it, you high school, college. How did you do it all?
It was hard. I mean, high school was amazing. Like, I just had a great high school experience. Like, I was I wanted to be valedictorian so bad. So I was like super focused on that. I had great friends, like, got to race every weekend. So that was great. So I got my first sprint car win in Knoxville the day after I graduated high school. And so part of that was like, I felt like my racing career up until that point was slightly more of a hobby. Like, even though in my mind it was a business, right? Like, in general, it was kind of more of a hobby. But then once I kind of started getting like those wins and I started getting bigger sponsor opportunities, like, then it kind of became like, hey, I might maybe be able to make a career out of this. And so a couple of my first big corporate pitches were when I was in high school, and like my school was pretty awesome. They would like, my principal and I were pretty close, so he would just let me have his office whenever I wanted it during the day. Yeah,
that's so cool.
He would just leave it to me, and like a lot of times I was there late at night, and because I would always say I'm not going to leave the building until everything's done. Like, I'm not going to go home and work. And so he would just tell me every night to lock up.
How big was your school? Was it a small school?
There was like 180 kids per class. So
that was kind of small. Yeah.
But for the state of for Iowa, it wasn't that small of a school. Yeah. So anyway, so that was that. And then I went to Drake University for college, where I was a finance major. And I was president of the investment club at Drake. I was involved in a lot of like, if you're the president of a top like business organization, you're also in the College of Business and Public Administration Leadership Committee or whatever, whatever that was. And so you kind of had to meet with the dean of the college and kind of make decisions regarding like the university and things like that and the curriculum and stuff. And so, and I was in like the Drake American Marketing Association and all kinds of different things. So that was really cool. It was a lot though. It was like way too much. And I got like super burnout, like super just totally like
been there,
like clinical burnout, like could not function. And so I was like racing. And then at that time I'd started Compass, like my youth team. And so we were like racing with the kids, and I was going to college and I was racing. And I think, yeah, it's so weird looking back on the time in my life, because it was like some of my most successful racing seasons, but it was also like this weird period too, where there was like a lot of, like we were just getting a lot of really cool opportunities, and like it almost happened just so fast that I really didn't even have the chance to like I was so focused on the day to day, that I wasn't even really paying attention to just all the little details that go along with it, and I ended up, I actually didn't finish college. Most people probably know that, but the dean of the college I was missing a lot of school, which in college, like, you can't really do that. Yeah, like, and, like, I think I missed, like, a month max, like, at a time, which was not technically acceptable. And I was racing stock cars, actually, for a NASCAR team at the time, like, late models, and not a lot, just, like, enough to where I was gone doing that. And I found a postcard recently, like a copy of this postcard that I mailed the dean of the college. And I was like, it's really funny to read it, because I'm like, I'm really sorry. This is what I'm doing. Hope you forgive me. And he basically was like, your grades are like a little bit too good for how much you're here. And he's like, I think, we'll always be here, but your dream won't. So I think you should go and chase your dream. And so. Oh,
that's cool.
It was really cool. Yeah. Very, very cool. And I appreciated him. He was a really cool guy. So I did step away from Drake, and the good part was I got my education. Like I did all the finance related classes first, and I saved like the prerequisites for last. And so really, I still got the education, and so that was good. And then I moved here to Indianapolis, and kind of like restarted life here when I was 22. So
what made you go? I mean, do we have more tracks here or something? Is that why you're like, you know what? I'm going to Indy, because like I did the same thing. I was in Kansas City. I'm like, well, racing's in Indy, so I'm going to Indy.
Yeah, I never really wanted to come here. I always wanted to end up just in Charlotte. Like, that was kind of my thing.
I love Charlotte too. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I've always loved Charlotte more than Indy, and I was racing 360s at the time. I actually had a big offer to run 360s in 2019, and I turned it down because I wanted to race midgets. Like, that was my thing at the time, which, you know, that transition was not very smooth for me, like coming from wing sprint cars on big tracks, like to racing midgets. Like, I loved it. Like, I wanted to get more experience, but I only got like a few races in different people's cars. And then the deal that I was working on full time here, like, fell through, and funding was like really tough for that too. Like, you have to pay so much money for those rides and whatnot. And so that didn't work out. And basically, in a nutshell, like, there's all these other things that happened that kind of like led me here, that someday I'll tell the whole story. But I've not really shared all those details yet. But
that's cool.
But it was pretty wild. Like, so I did end up here regardless, and I had it just got on a one-way flight and said, like, I'm not coming back until I have something else. And started calling churches looking for a place to live, and found some lovely strangers that let me.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, it was wild. I showed up here 9:00 at night, had no clue what these people even looked like, and just had a bunch of tubs of all my clothes. Like, I left behind the only home I'd ever known for 22 years, like, loaded up everything, just left. And yeah, just showed up at these people's house, and then kept, just bouncing places. And then I just, like, everybody's like, well, where are you going to live? Like, officially, like, you can't just couch hop forever. And I was like, well, I have this, like, vision of, like, this older couple whose kids are grown. And, like, I just have a feeling they have, like, some place, you know, like, not really in their house, but kind of. And it was so specific. And everybody's like, where are you going to find something like that? And I was like, well, at the very least, like, if I'm being realistic, I'm like, at the very least, you know, every church in America has some old lady that sits in the same row every week, whose husband, like, may or may not be alive, and she bakes really good chocolate chip cookies, and she would love for me to come and keep her company. So I called 19 churches, and on the 19th one, this lady reached out, and her husband live in the country in Greenwood, Indiana. Their kids are grown. They have a guest house on their property, and she bakes really good chocolate chip cookies. So
You knew you had a vision.
Yeah.
That is blowing my mind right now.
yeah, so I moved in, and I've been there ever since. So
That.
yeah.
I love that. And because that leads me in the next thing, too, that I love about you. So you talk about how your team is very faith-based. And I just love that. I have friends of Racers for Christ and everything like that.
Yeah.
So when you say faith-based, what does that mean for you, for your team?
Yeah, that's a good question. Like, I know that, you know, especially in sprint car racing, like, that's kind of a bold, you know, step to take, because it's not like we're probably like the only professional form of motorsport that doesn't have like a traveling ministry or anything like that. And so it's not like super duper common. But for me, like, I was like kind of raised around the church off and on growing up. But when I got my first race car, like, there was this prayer inside of it, and that I just like memorized that prayer. So I've said that like every race ever since, you know. And when I was in college, I got involved in like this ministry that really, really like changed my life. Like, I would have never, ever, like, I don't know where I'd be without them. Like, don't want to know. So that, yeah, I mean, basically I just had this like, yeah, like just this really like undeniable like faith experience in college. And then just with racing, like, even though like you have a lot of supporters and people, right? Like, you do feel like you're kind of on an island on this journey. And so prayer just kind of became like this natural thing for me. And I just felt like when I would pray, like, I could kind of hear God like almost talking back sometimes, right? Like, there would just be this voice in my head that would just sometimes like answer almost, you know. And I'm hesitant to say that because, like, I don't want people to just think like, you know, it's like some kind of weird phone system or something.
No, not at all. No.
But yeah, so that kind of sparked that. And like, it just kind of went from there. Like, I think what probably affected my faith the most was just recognizing how, like, in racing, I would just feel called to like help somebody, or to do like with my kids program, right? Like, God, I wouldn't have phrased it this way back then, but like now I see it's like God was putting all these people in my life, and me and theirs, and vice versa, where he was just like literally doing miracles. And I remember I was still kind of green in my faith, but I would like go back to these ministry leaders in college and be like, hey, like, this crazy thing happened, or this crazy thing happened. Like, you know, what do you think about this? And then they would literally just be able to point to like a story in scripture where it was like the exact same, you know, like thing. And so it was just blowing my mind. And then, I just like, and then even just with different racers or just people in the sport, like, I would just have these really crazy, like, faith conversations or people that would just like open up about their life. And I mean, it like I wouldn't probably not be the best counselor in the world, but in college that was something that just interested me and like made me admire people that are in that field, because I learned that there's like not quite like it's such a different joy to be able to like help other people in ways that are like so much bigger than what you're actually doing. Like in racing, it's like, you know, obviously you're not just gonna go around and sharing all your experiences that you've had with people just because of confidentiality and just like, you know, personal privacy and all that. But I'm just so thankful that when I look back on my racing career, it's like driving race cars means the absolute world to me, and I love it. But just to look at the people that I've been able to have like those connections with, to have those conversations with that like nobody would ever know about, you know, like, and so I just think that that's like what is cool, like to have like a greater purpose that kind of binds you to the sport and the people in it. And so, and especially when you're in a dangerous sport too, like sprint car racing, we've lost a lot of competitors, unfortunately, to death. And like, it makes you think about like death and like, where am I going to go when I die? And thankfully for me, like I have no doubt where I'm going. And it changes the way you live your life, because it's like when you know that this isn't your home, you know, it just changes like your whole perspective as like, what am I actually living for, you know? And like when I think about, you know, like my funeral, which is like terrible to say, but when you really think about that, like who would show up or like what would they say, you know? And I think about that a lot, and it changes like how you live your life, like how you react, like you know, to things. And racing, sprint car racing specifically, like sprint car drivers tend to be hotheads, and I am included in that. And even though that's not like you know, from God to blow up or to like, you know, to get frustrated or angry, like I think that like those are just the moments where it like reminds me of like, okay, like why are we actually doing this, like who are we actually here to impact? And like that challenges you, because it's, especially the older I get, it's so easy to be like, well, we're here to win, right? Or like, and we are like 100%, like you can be 100% competitor, 100% fierce, 100% sprint car driver, and also still be like 100%, you know, Christian. And I think the world will try to tell you otherwise, but I think it's worth taking the risk of of like, you know, I think sometimes when people don't know where they're at with like faith or whatever, it's like, what does it hurt to try, you know? Because like I'd rather take my chances at ending up in heaven if I'm gonna take a chance, then I'll take a chance at that. And so yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but for us, like that's just kind of been our journey. So
well, it does, because like I said, when you were telling your story to begin with, I'm like, God is putting her in the right places. I'm like, she's got a plan, he's got a plan, and he's showing her where to go. Mm-hmm. So I'm like, and when you kept talking about it, I'm like, that's a miracle, and that's kind of fate type of deal. So I totally understand that. And it leads in the next thing. One of your purposes is, because I can't believe you do all this too, but you have youth racers in America.
Yep.
So you said you weren't exposed to it till you met Casey and all this, but you're working to change that for other kids. And so tell me about that, Youth Racers of America.
Yep. So I actually wrote a research paper in college that was kind of like a financial analysis of the motorsports industry. And basically my results showed that like youth motorsports is like one of the greatest value propositions that we have. And not to get nerdy or too far off in the weeds about why, but you know, when people are financially invested in the sport at such a young age and are exposed to like the wide variety of opportunities available to them, you know, like you're basically fostering the sport from the ground up. And I think it's like creating the foundation of a house, right? Like you're not going to want to build your house on toothpicks, you know, and just focus on like, you know, a really nice couch on top of your toothpicks, right? Like racing has to have something underneath of it that's sustainable, especially in a society that like there's so much, you know, so many opportunities, right? Like so many things pulling people different directions. And so when I looked at that, I was like, okay, this is basically threefold. I'm like, first, there's a massive amount of people out there who are so passionate about this industry and know nothing about it. I was one of them. And I know what it feels like to just not have a clue. Like I had no idea that kids drove race cars. Like I knew what NASCAR was and I watched it, but I had no clue that like how kids would get started in that. And if you Googled it, like back then, or even like right when I started YRA, it would just say like 5 steps to your kid becoming the next Jeff Gordon. It was like a WikiHow article. But other than that, there was like nothing. And now if you Google how to get my kids started in racing, it brings up the Youth Racers of America website. And on that is like an interactive map where families can see all the kinds of youth motorsports in their area. They can read like pages upon pages of the different kinds of youth race cars. We have like just all sorts of different resources, videos, like email and phone like services where, I mean, anymore we get tons of emails from families all over the country. And like I open my inbox and it's just like, my kid's 8 years old, my kid's 14 years old. Like I had a mom yesterday, like I'm in San Antonio. Did we miss the boat? Cause my kid's 14. Like he loves racing. We have no clue how to get him started. Like it's almost like you'd think it was like the same copy and paste email if it wasn't like different ages and different locations, you know? And so I respond to all of those personally. Like I help those families find tracks, find cars, find safety gear, whatever they need. And again, I just don't think our industry realizes that that's out there. Like people they're not going to Google quarter midget. They're not going to Google junior sprint car. Like they don't even know what that means. They just know their kid likes NASCAR and loves to drive their bike around the neighborhood or whatever. And then they reach out to us. And so that's the first part. The second part is like once kids are in the sport, a lot of times those families know kind of what they know, but then they don't know like, how do I get to the next step? Or they might not know like what is safest for my kid, or if my kid has a concussion, like what is the best thing to do, right? Like they don't have access to those resources. And so we provide like safety gear discounts. We provide clinics for kids to come and like learn from professionals, learn from like medical like safety crews or doctors in the industry, financial people in the industry on like, how do we fund our kids racing? Do we form an LLC? How does this work with our taxes? Like all these things.
Wow, you got it all.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and then also just like youth racing compared to like what I do, and even with what I do, is a lot of times at the track, they might have safety volunteers, but they might not have like full-fledged, you know, like medical units. Right. And so part of what like our safety program teaches is like, you know, you can buy a tourniquet on Amazon, like keep that in your trailer, have a fire extinguisher on hand, like, you know, here
Good
are these
tips.
like have like your medical information ready to go, like if you have to go to the hospital, just all those kinds of things that we provide. And so, and safety gear sizing is big too, like because kids grow so fast and like that's something that can be very dangerous. So anyway, so that's for kids in racing. And then like, what do kids do when they get older? So we have our teen career program that connects kids with like job opportunities, job shadows, internships, just educating them on the different career paths in racing, because a lot of kids, if they don't go on to be a professional driver, like they don't realize like the opportunities that are available to them. And so we've had like a few kids, you know, come through the program in Indy, and actually I have 3 of them that are now working for my sprint car team.
Wow.
Yeah, that have never like literally never been a sprint car race in their life, like never seen a sprint car until they showed up at my shop, and you would never know it. Like if you came to my shop tomorrow and like watched them work, you would think that they've always been doing that. And so that's been really cool for us to kind of see that. And so yeah, so that's YRA. And like I really didn't design it to be about me, or like I didn't want people to know that I was behind it, because I was hoping that the industry would like, I don't know, just kind of take it like, you know, and like impact the industry in its own way. But it's been a lot more challenging than what I expected, because the industry just hasn't really, you know, like anybody that's kind of seen the value in it has kind of tried to duplicate it in their own space, which is frustrating. And then, you know, there's other people that just don't like share that passion that I have, because they maybe came from this industry, or they've kind of got their thing settled, and like they don't really understand like, well, why do I need to help, you know, like
You want to grow the sport in the next generation, you know, all that, you know?
Yeah, I would hope so.
Purpose.
But it is challenging. And then I think, I mean, as much as I hate to admit it, like there is a lot of political, social influence in motorsports. And like, I definitely don't have like, you know, that status or the name or what you might need to take something like YRA and carry it to like a different level. And so I definitely am very open to finding somebody to almost like pass it along to that does have that ability to make it what it was designed to be, because I designed YRA to be scalable and to impact large numbers. And I've found that it's very difficult to do that like on my own. And so and I volunteer all my time as well to it, but it's a lot of work, especially with how many emails and phone calls we get nowadays. And so, it's a business dilemma that I face, but I'm hoping that there's somebody out there in this industry that cares enough to kind of help me find that next step for YRA for it to just like be what it is and help make the industry what I believe it's capable of being in the future.
Well, and I looked at the site, and it's great because she has a map. So anywhere you're listening to this in the United States, you click on it, it'll show you a map of the racetracks or karting tracks or everything by you. And it's so easy, the website. And you designed this all too?
I did, yes. And I wrote a lot of the content and all of that, like any of the tracks on the map, like I selected and that kind of thing. And one thing, like, I want people to know that might be thinking about, like, just supporting YRA in general or sending people our way is there was two things, like, you know, that I thought of when we were putting this together. And the map reminds me of it is, like, one of it is, you know, there's a lot of great youth racing organizations out there, but what sets YRA apart is, like, we're not sending kids one direction, right? Like, the map shows all forms of youth racing in the state. It's not just, like, we have junior drag and micro sprints and go-karts and outlaw karts and quarter midgets, like, you name it. Like, we send families to where what's the best fit for them, and we give them all of their options. And so, you know, like, yes, there's, you know, different forms of youth racing groups in the country, but they tend to be specified with like one form of youth racing. So that's one thing that YRA does to stay neutral. And then the other is it gives like manufacturers and industry personnel the opportunity to give back in a way that is neutral. And I think sometimes like the industry is hesitant, like, well, we don't know if we should give back to this one thing. But I want them to realize like that one thing is helping all kids neutrally. Like, you're not putting your name on like, we're supporting this kid or this track or this series. You're supporting like youth motorsports as a whole. And to me, it gives those people in the industry that are getting hit up all the time by people looking for support, it gives them an out to say like, we are supporting youth motorsports, like through YRA, like they're dispersing the support, you know, and we trust that like they're going to distribute it like, you know, evenly across the industry. And so I think that that's definitely something that like a message I've tried to get across, because like I just want people to understand like those things. And so I wish like we could just get like somebody to really come in and like help us like really, really make it, you know, what it is. Cause I've just seen other like professional, like, you know, drivers much larger than myself who like when they start something, like all they do is make one post and it just like takes off, you know, like they just have those platforms that can do that. And so I hope we can find, you know, somebody that can really help us like take it to the next level. So,
well, you're on the way from like, you know, like I said, your podcast with my friend JP just went out. We're doing this podcast. So we're trying to help so we can get you more hits and more people recognize you. And I'm just still blown away. I'm like, oh my gosh, you're only in your 20s. You've done all this a lot mostly by yourself. And you're making impact on all these young kids. And you're single yourself and you're doing all this work for the kids. I just hope that the parents really appreciate you.
Yeah, and I think that's the other hard part too, is like that's something I've learned with youth racing that's so different, is when you want to change the way something is, you have to understand that for those people, they're never going to know the way it used to be, right? Like if you change something for the better, like they don't know what you changed it from because they only know the now.
Yes.
And so again, I think it like comes back to like, how are we going to have servant hearts and do things in ways that like maybe people appreciate it, maybe they won't, but regardless, you're just called to do the right thing. And for me, like I'm passionate about this sport and I'm thankful to have a part in it. And I hope, you know, that the rest of racing, like at some point just like gets on an airplane and looks around at the world down below them and realizes like our industry, like it's big, but it's not that big, you know? And like we've got to stop, like, it's always like everybody's trying to tear each other apart. Like tracks are fighting with tracks, series are fighting with series.
Oh,
you know?
yes. No, I know that.
And like drivers with drivers. And I get it. Like I'm a competitor too. And like those things happen. But we've also got to be able to take a step back and realize like, hey, we're adults. Like we've all been called to this industry that we're passionate about. And we've got to take this seriously because we have an opportunity to like take a bigger piece of the pie that we're not taking right now. Like we're absolutely not taking it, because there's other industries out there that are going to get people's attention if we don't take it first, because we're too busy trying to divide ourselves versus just trying to grow the whole pie.
And here's a fun motorsports story for you too, because I talked to friends, the Gordon family, and they said their daughters were in gymnastics, but that was too dangerous for them. So they put them in junior dragsters because it was safer.
Yeah, that's funny.
And it is nowadays.
Yeah.
I mean, even the drivers say I feel safer in a race car than I do on the truck on the way to the track.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. And you hear that with youth racing. Like, I think it is difficult to break down those stereotypes. Like, I wish it was a more accessible sport, just because even with those families that reach out to us, like, it always breaks my heart to say, like, well, you really need to buy a car if you want to really be committed. You know, you don't have to. But even if it's $2,000-$3,000, like to racing families, like that's not much. But just to the average family on the street, it's like it is kind of a challenge to change their perspective on that. And I always like say like, well, you're buying an asset, like you can resell, you know, and there's ways around it. But I think, you know, that's another challenge in the industry. I mean, that's like a huge like can of worms there. But, you know, I think there is like hopefully a way someday that we could at least make it a little bit more accessible, like in some capacity, and just educate families on like what our sport is and like why they should be involved.
Very cool. And now here comes to the part where now we get to help sell you too. So let me know, who are your sponsors that you want to give shout outs to? Now's your time. Shout out your sponsors.
Thank you. Yeah, my sponsors this year, Hy-Vee, Viviclear RX, Redbox RX, Laura Kopetsky Triax, Delta Dental of Iowa, Autojet Muffler Corporation, Drain Tech, OMP, Bell Helmets, Tom and Terry Wilson, Warren, Vince, Hooker Harness, Trixie's.
And she's good. She's not looking at this. She's got my memory. She's good. She's got that winner circle speech down.
Alkaline 88. I hope I didn't miss anybody. If I did, I'm very sorry.
I don't think you did. And I love Hy-Vee. I miss Hy-Vee. They need to get down here by me.
They're coming next year.
Oh, I'm so excited. And just look their investment in the sport too. I mean, Big Geek Business Talk, what they've done with IndyCar and all they're doing in Iowa. I'm like, they've really stepped up in motorsports, so they're good ones.
For sure. Yeah, I'm thankful. We were the first sprint car team that they supported, and that's something that I'm proud of with our team is like a good majority of our partners over the years have been new to sprint car racing, like probably like 50 plus companies, you know, that haven't been involved in the sport.
Wow, really?
And so that's another thing with racing is I know people tend to get like jealous of each other when it comes to funding and to resources and stuff, but like I just can't encourage people enough. Like there's a lot of businesses in the world that are not in racing. Like go make them yours, because those partnerships end up being a little bit more solidified because like, for example, my partners, like they believe in like me and what we're doing because that is their first exposure to the sport, you know? And so I'm super grateful for just like, you know, the strength of our partnerships and just like the relationships that we've been able to build there. And like, again, I mean, there's so many companies out there supporting other things, you know, like Hy-Vee used to support other forms of sports or just different things. And now they're really involved in motorsports. And so be that person that is an advocate for the industry and like go out and find, you know, like those companies in your community or even beyond that. Like now with social media, you can find all kinds of companies and like bring them into our sport because that's only going to better the sport.
Yeah. And what I always ask this to everybody too, what's your number one piece of advice that you would give a young girl out there right now who says, I want to race? What's your number one piece of advice for her?
Well, I mean, if I'm going the faith direction, like, of course I would always say like, you know, invest in your faith first, because for me, like, you know, like that's like what's gotten me to where I am, like what I feel like keeps me going. But putting that aside, like, I've always just said, like, do what's within your means and, like, stay true to yourself and do the right thing. Like, I think that's the biggest thing, because I do get asked all the time, like, well, you know, how can I get involved or how can I get started? And, like, you've just got to get started wherever you can start at. And that's what I did. Like, I ran in a recreational karting league, like, just at a place where you can just, anybody could pay. Like, you could go there and pay to race. Like, I did that every Thursday for 2 years just because, like, I didn't have the resources to race. I worked for every team in the business that would ever let me scrape mud for them. I worked for free. Like, even when I moved here, I was 22 years old and racing 410 sprint cars, and I was working for either nothing or, you know, like maybe 30, 40 bucks here or there or whatever I could get, you know? Like, to this day, I'll do that. Like, I don't work for, somebody once told me, take a job for what you can learn, not for what you can earn. And, like, I can't say that enough to the younger generation, just because our society is always promoting, like, well, you have to go to college, you have to get a job, you have to do these things. And yes, there's a lot of importance to a lot of those things, but, like, if you're following God and, like, you're giving your best, like, he's not going to fail you. Like, you're not going to, like, you might feel like you're failing, but you're still going to get somewhere because people will at some point recognize that.
I love that. I love it. And so tell everybody, too, where they can find you online, on social. Where can people find you and get more information about everything?
So my website is McKennaHaase.com, and my last name is Haase, and Facebook under McKenna Haase, Instagram under Sassy Haase 55, and Twitter, of which I hate.
And I love Twitter, so I'm like, yes.
Under McKenna Haase.
And then your YRA, now where can they find that too? The website address?
Yep. So YRA is youthracers.of-america.com. We also have a YouTube channel, Twitter, and Instagram under either Youth Racers of America or Youth Racers.
Wow. Everybody, you've got to check this out. You've got to check all her stuff out. Amazing. Oh my God. Thank you so much for stopping by today, because I'm just in awe of your story the whole time. You could see me, I'm just like, oh my God. I'm just listening to her, and I'm still amazed how much knowledge and how you're way beyond your years. Beyond your years.
Thank you so much.
So thank you so much for coming in today. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you again for listening. I'm Nikki Clark, and this is Women Take the Wheel. Be sure to connect and follow on Facebook when you search for Women Take the Wheel podcast. And be sure to follow and subscribe to this podcast right now here on the All Indiana Podcast Network.
From the All Indiana Podcast Network, this is Women Take the Wheel with Nikki Clark. Follow and subscribe to this podcast now and discover even more great podcasts on the All Indiana Podcast Network. Online at allindianapodcastnetwork.com. allindianapodcastnetwork.com.